Before Heroes, before Nashville, before millions of people knew her name, there was a little girl so little she couldn't possibly understand what fame even meant. But the camera was already rolling, and for almost her entire life it kept rolling. Little feet beneath the lights, another morning, another scene, learning lines before she knew what growing up would really mean. Commercials, auditions, another place to be. While other little girls were learning who they were, the world was already learning who it wanted her to be. And we watched her grow from that little girl into someone millions recognized. But there's something a camera can never capture. Everything happening on the other side of someone's eyes. We watched the little girl grow up, but we couldn't see every mile she walked. We saw the smile, we heard the lines, we knew the characters, but we didn't hear every quiet thought. She wasn't indestructible, she wasn't supposed to be. She was human, trying to become who she needed to be. Then came the cheerleader Claire, a girl who could fall, break, bleed, and somehow heal again. And suddenly the whole world was watching Hayden save the cheerleader. Funny how a character can follow somebody long after the camera stopped. Because Claire could heal from anything, but Hayden showed us something television couldn't. Real healing doesn't happen between commercial breaks. She kept trying to heal when the lights came down. She kept trying to heal when nobody else was around. Not a superhero, not a character, not somebody who couldn't break. Just a young woman learning that sometimes healing takes everything you've got. Then Nashville called, and there was another side we got to meet. Not just an actress standing behind a microphone. Hayden could sing, and suddenly that voice had somewhere else to go. Country stages, songs, Juliet Barnes, another complicated woman living underneath another complicated spotlight. Maybe Hayden understood something about complicated. Maybe that's why we believed her. Because behind the beautiful dresses, the cameras, the premieres, the applause, there was still a human being. And human beings can hurt while everybody else thinks they're shining. Then she became a mother, and life became something bigger than another role. But motherhood didn't magically make everything easy. She spoke about depression, about addiction, about struggling, about needing help. And that's where we're gonna recognize something important. Admitting I am not okay isn't weakness. Sometimes it's one of the bravest sentences a person can say. She kept trying to heal, not perfectly, not privately, not according to anybody else's timeline. She stumbled, she hurt, she tried again. Because healing isn't a straight road, and neither was hers. And then her little brother, Jansen, 28 years old, gone. There are losses you move through, and there are losses you learn to carry. Hayden carried started walking again. One step, then another, then another. Sometimes that's what courage looks like. Not running, not flying, not being indestructible. Just one more step. She kept trying to heal through the heartbreak, through the years. She kept trying to heal through the judgment, through the tears. Every fall didn't mean failure. Every scar wasn't the end. Sometimes healing means waking tomorrow and trying again. She was more than the cheerleader, more than Nashville, more than the headlines, more than the photographs, more than somebody else's version of her story. She was Hayden, daughter, mother, sister, actress, singer, woman, human. And eventually, after spending a lifetime reading words somebody else had written, Hayden started telling her own story. Her words, her memories, her mistakes, her truth. Imagine that a little girl grew up in front of cameras and eventually became a woman who said, "Let me tell you who I was." She kept trying to heal. Maybe that's what we remember. Not perfection, not pretending, not some impossible happy ending. Remember the little girl, remember the woman, remember the voice, remember the fight. Remember somebody can look beautiful beneath the brightest lights and stays. And stays. And stays. And eventually, after spending a lifetime reading words somebody else had written, Hayden started telling her own story. Her words, her memories, her mistakes, her truth. Imagine that a little girl grew up in front of cameras and eventually became a woman who said, "Let me tell you who